I do want to continue to follow all of this and bring in Congressman Adam Smith, a Democrat from Washington, to discuss it. Congressman, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I appreciate the chance.
Of course. And I want to start by talking to you kind of overall about the situation itself, this operation ongoing in Iran. A lot of people didn't necessarily know that this was going to happen at that specific time on Saturday morning. So take me back to that time and tell me what was going through your mind as you were kind of processing all of this.
Yeah, well, I was aware that this was coming because my job on the Armed Services Committee and conversations we'd had. I mean, I wasn't positive it was going to happen, but it sure seemed that way. So we were thinking about it. But look, the implication of it, it's, we have a full-scale Mideast war. I mean, you just put the list of the countries up there, 14 countries across the Middle East now where Americans are not safe to be in. This is the largest conflict that we have been engaged in, gosh, probably since World War II in terms of the sheer volume of territory and countries that are involved. So it's massively disruptive and dangerous, and it does not appear to be ending anytime soon. And I still don't have a clear idea of what the objective is. When do we get to the point where, okay, we've accomplished what we've wanted to accomplish? We've gotten multiple different answers from the administration. And frankly, I don't think at this point they know for sure. And that adds another element of uncertainty into certainly the Middle East, but also given the oil that comes out of there and the global disruptions, the global economy.
You kind of already touched on this, but we know that those briefings, closed door, are expected later on today. And I know you probably can't go into too much detail, but what I wanted to ask is what question or questions might you be bringing up during those meetings? What do you want answers from?
Well, I got the briefing yesterday as the ranking member of the Armed Services Committee. They did chairs and rankings of the key committees yesterday. Same group, Secretary Rubio, Secretary Hegseth, CIA Director Radcliffe, and Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff Kane all gave us the briefing. And the big questions are what I alluded to first. What exactly are the objectives? We keep hearing administration officials say, we have clear objectives and we are going to fight until we achieve them, and we're making progress. Now, they have said that those objectives are basically stop the nuclear program, go after their ballistic missiles, and possibly, also their Navy. They want to destroy Iran's Navy. And then there's allusions to the fact that they would like to see a new regime. But there's not really any sort of measurement on that. I did ask yesterday, okay, what exactly are our objectives? How are we progressing towards achieving them? And what does the end goal look like? To oversimplify it, let's say Iran has 10,000 ballistic missiles and 1,000 missile launchers and, I don't know, 24 plants that can make missiles. Are we looking to destroy 80% of them, 90% of them? How far along that are we? And what's their capacity to rebuild? Because do remember that allegedly in June of last year, so what's that, 8 months ago, we completely destroyed their nuclear program. We were done. And then 8 months later, all of a sudden, it's an existential threat again. So how do we not just keep doing this? Because remember, this is really costly and disruptive. I mean, there's a saying in counterterrorism circles, that what you have to do occasionally is mow the grass, which basically means there's a lot of terrorists out there. You got to push them back. You're not going to eliminate them. But if this is mowing the grass, this is the world's biggest lawn, and we're trying to mow it really, really low. And that is incredibly costly in this context. So, and then the other big area of questions is, so what do you envision the Iranian regime being when we're done here?
Also wanted to ask you about the War Powers resolution. There's a lot of talk about that and what happens kind of as the week progresses and the weeks progress here. What do you expect will happen? And even if, there is passage and voting in favor of it, does that really do anything?
Yeah, a lot of history to get into here. I guess I'll start with the practical of exactly what's going to happen and then try to explain it a little bit. The War Powers Resolution basically gives Congress the ability to say, yeah, you cannot go forward with military action any further until you get congressional approval. So the vote we're taking this week is not actually on, the whether or not you support the war against Iran. It's saying that this war is not legal without congressional approval. So if it were to pass into law, the president would be legally required, and there's caveats there as to whether or not he'd actually follow that law. They'd be legally required to stop the war until he got congressional approval. Now, we have to pass this, and since it's a law, the president would have to sign it, which he is not going to do, obviously, even if it passes, and then you need 2/3 votes to overturn it. So the ability of this to pass into law, very unlikely, but it does serve the function of forcing forward the debate. To basically say, come on, Congress. I mean, you should have a say one way or the other. I mean, if you support this war, great. Go on record saying that you support it instead of hiding in the shadows. We're the elected representatives of the people. That's what a constitutional republic is supposed to be. Our voices should be heard. Now, there's a long history of presidents taking military action without congressional approval. Now, those military actions typically have been limited. The excuse has been it's not a war, it's just a brief interaction. This is the largest conflict that we have ever engaged in without congressional approval. Now, Camel's nose was under the tent for a while, and maybe this is Congress's fault for allowing that to happen. But this is a massive conflict that I think should have congressional approval.
What do you say to folks on the other side of the aisle who say that that's not needed? What is your message that you want to get across to them right now, right here?
I say two things. One, legally, you're wrong. And to the extent we want to follow the law in this country, which is an open question, that should matter. The War Powers Resolution is pretty clear. The president has to give notification, and he hasn't done that. So legally, this is a war that requires congressional approval. But second, I say put aside the legal question. The American people have been asked to go into this conflict. We have already lost 6 U.S. service members killed. The president has said he expects more casualties. Men and women in our military are putting their lives on the line for us right now. And then there are Americans throughout the Middle East, and also there's the risk of Iranian terrorist attacks. American lives are being put at stake. And for you to say that as an elected member of Congress, you don't want to vote on that, I think is an abdication of your responsibility to your constituents, regardless of what the law says. You ought to be on the record one way or the other. And I've taken those votes. I've been around for a while. I've taken a lot of votes in a lot of different conflicts, and I think I made some mistakes along the way. But as an elected representative, I had to vote. The people who voted for me had a right to know where I stood. And I think that applies here as well.
Congressman, thank you so much for your time and for joining us here on Live Now from Fox. Anything that we missed that you want to make sure we add here before I let you go?
I think you covered it fairly well. But again, I really think, where is this going? What does success look like? I think the administration has not been transparent on that point. They have not made the case to the American people. The president did a 8-minute Truth Social post at 2:00 in the morning, and then he pretty much dropped the mic and went to war. I think the administration has a lot more work to do to make the case to the American people what we're doing, why, where it's going, and what we hope to achieve.
All right, Congressman Adam Smith, thank you so much for being here with us. We definitely appreciate it.
Thanks. Give me the chance.